You've got to get up pretty early in the morning to speak to America's hardworking farmers and food producers. We should know. FLM Harvest is a strategic, full-service creative consultancy proud to reach more farmers, farmer boards, and food and commodity associations than any agency in the country. And we understand omni-channel as well as we understand the journey from field to fork. Most importantly, we connect clients to the audiences that matter to them.
Senator Cramer, thanks for joining me for Meet the Lawmaker today. So you're not too unfamiliar with Washington as you served in Congress, but just tell me, starting off, what are some of the differences you see in the Senate so far?
Well, one of the biggest differences, of course, is the pace of things. They call it deliberation. It's a hard one for me. I'm a little more action-oriented, and so that's been a challenge, a little bit of a challenge, but I also anticipated it. On the other hand, what I like a lot about the Senate that's a fair bit different than in the House is there's a lot more member-to-member interaction. It's institutionalized in the schedule. There's a lot more one-on-one, a lot more small group, just a lot more member-to-member. And why that's important to me is because, when you have 435 colleagues, it's hard to know them all. You tend to focus on sort of the areas of your expertise or your committee, and in the case of the House, I was on one committee. And it empowers the bureaucracy. In the Senate, members are way more engaged on topics one-to-one, and it means that there's less, I think anyway, less outside influence from things like committee staff and stakeholders.
What are some of the committees you're on?
So I'm on the Environment and Public Works Committee, and Armed Services Committee, Banking Committee, Veterans Affairs Committee, and the Budget Committee.
And being on Environmental and Public Works, tell me about, I know on your campaign you strongly oppose Waters of the U.S.
Right.
rule. Just kind of tell me how that specifically impacts North Dakota farmers.
Well, I think Waters of the U.S. is best defined by as a large land grab, and it's more prevalent probably in the pothole state of North Dakota than anywhere else, because North Dakota's history with the wetlands and with Swamp Buster has been one where we've been good stewards of the land prior to those laws and since those laws. And so to have such an imposition as the federal government on daily monitoring, on requirements for permitting, to absolutely really sanction, if you will, the grabbing of farmers' land by the growth of a wetland that's that's not a Waters of the U.S. in my view, for example. I just think it's just a gross imposition of the federal government. And so for North Dakota, where farmers aren't drainers. They didn't drain when other prairie pothole states were draining. They were managing their land as delineations changed. And now they find it quite offensive to have these broad definitions imposed by the federal government.
Now you're a subcommittee chair, correct?
I am.
What do you hope to accomplish there?
Yeah, so what I want to do as much as anything as a subcommittee chair, of course, drive some legislation, but more than anything is to shed a light on this issue, particularly the issue of Fish and Wildlife Service and their management of the old, post-World War II, permanent easements that were poorly delineated, poorly mapped, poorly documented, and are wildly managed by, in my view, by the bureaucracy to the detriment of the farmer, even to the detriment, in my view, of wildlife. So, I tend to make that a strong focus, at least personal focus of mine, and try to rein in and apply some common sense to this management of federal waters.
You support an all-of-the-above energy plan approach, referencing anywhere from coal all the way to wind power.
Yes.
Is it possible for all of these to kind of coexist?
Well, it's possible for them to all coexist, but I think that the existence of one over the other ought to be determined by the marketplace and the consumer and price, not by the imposition of federal laws and regulations. So in the case of wind and coal, North Dakota has a lot of both. We are a major coal producing state. We generate a lot of electricity with that coal. We not only use that electricity domestically, but we sell it to the states around us. We're a big exporter of electricity that's generated by burning coal. The technologies have become cleaner and cleaner as a result of good stewardship, as a result of appropriate expectations, and the technological advancements that come from the industry itself. We're also a big wind state because we have a lot of wind as well. It's a windy place, and we have the perfect landscape for it. That same prairie pothole region that affects waters also creates a lot of nice ridges for capturing the wind. We're tree-free, so to speak, and so we generate a lot of wind in a very efficient way. The nice thing about all of that is that electricity generated whether by wind or by coal or by natural gas for that matter, or solar, can all ride on the same transmission lines. And it's that infrastructure, that transportation transmission infrastructure, that's so vital to moving our products to market, including electricity. Now, can they coexist? Actually, it's difficult in some cases for them to coexist. But I think that the winner should emerge based on economics and what the market wants, not on what the government wants or what some lobbyist suggests.
USDA set to implement a new farm bill here. During your campaign, you focused on getting some help for those farmers facing drought, and then improving ARC
Yes.
livestock programs. Just talk to me how your state will benefit from the farm bill, and kind of what do you plan to do to kind of ensure that gets implemented correctly?
Yeah, that's a great point, because passing a good farm bill is one thing, and it's important, and we did. We passed a good one, and we passed a good one largely because the previous farm bill that we passed was so good. That was really the more dramatic change in policy, shifting from a direct payment program to more of a little more of a modest safety net, if you will, that provides a little bit more freedom. Certainly maintaining crop insurance as the main safety net, using the commodity titles like ARC and PLC. It was a good move, but we found some glitches in it. And in the new farm bill, we were able to fix some of those glitches by providing a little more flexibility, providing the opportunity for farmers to change their decisions throughout the course of the 5 years. And it also provided now some of the information that was gathered in the past farm bill, and allowing us to use appropriate data. For example, we know that good commodity title programs require good data. We had complicating factors like one set of data for ARC, another set of data for PLC, farmers being required to fill out more than one survey. In a big state like North Dakota, where we have large farms and large counties, very personalized data is important, and applying that. Applying one farmer's data or one county's data to another county's or to another farmer's, complicated stuff. So we were able to clean up some of that in the language this go around, which I think was very helpful.
Immigration continues to be a topic here in Washington on the Hill. You support the wall and a stronger border security. A lot of farmers use migrant workers on their either in their fields or dairies, things like that. Is it possible to find a solution for both areas to, I guess, use folks, or is there a solution there?
There's a solution there. I don't know. Getting to it's not going to be easy, because if there are 10 things in an immigration policy and somebody likes 8 of them, it seems like the 2 that they don't like, they feel so strongly about that they won't even pass something that includes the 8 they do want. I've never seen perfect become the enemy of good more pronounced than in this debate and in this discussion. I grew up in a farming community of Kindred, where the sugar beet industry is very, very prominent. And when I was growing up, we used migrant workers to hoe the beets, to thin them out. And we had a migrant school in the summer in my school. It added value to the school. The families that worked on the farms were some of our best friends. They were people we hung out with in the summertime. They were kids we played with. Although they worked so darn hard, they hardly had time for playing. And I could never beat one in a short race. But that's another fact. They were just the best athletes. I mean, they were great. We just loved them. They were our family. That's changed with mechanization, of course. But that said, we have a lot of farmers that use particularly South African immigrants for harvest, and mostly harvest, some planting. And they're part of their families. My basic philosophy on the immigration policy is that we ought to determine who gets into our country. That it's our business and we ought to do it. I don't like caps. What I'd rather have is a skills-based and a merit-based immigration system without the caps. Because if we need more of a workforce or an education force in a certain area, we shouldn't tie our hands. We should try to get it. And that includes H-2A for farmers, it includes H-2B, it includes H-1Bs, it includes all of it. I'd like to see more flexibility between the various visa programs, and I'd like us to not have caps, but to have it be merit-based so that we have the lowest percentage of merit-based immigration in the world, and we have the largest number of immigrants, legal immigrants in the world. We ought to have immigration that matches the workforce demands of our economy, and not have to put a cap on it. My other big challenge, my other big problem is, well, let me just give this experience. I find it frustrating that every season I get several phone calls from farmers saying, would you mind intervening on behalf of our workforce that has been coming for 8 or 9 years, and suddenly this year they're slowed up, and they're due to be here shortly. It's time to harvest the crops, whatever the case might be, and we intervene and we get it fixed. And they end up coming. The problem I have with that is, why not do the right thing before I call? I find it frustrating that our citizens in our business community, including our farmers, have to call their senator or their congressman to get our federal government to do the right thing.
Okay, so outside Congress, just kind of what does Kevin Cramer like to do for fun?
Oh gosh, so I love my family. I have 5 grandchildren and an 11-year-old son who's an uncle to all 5 of those grandchildren, and we play a lot. My church is my most important institution apart from my family. I'm very active in worship. Just enjoy going home. Beyond that, to be honest with you, when you have such a large family, they tend to be your pastime, and I can't think of a better pastime than family.
Senator, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.